Hello there, Ryan Black, real estate investor. And this morning on Forbes, I read an article titled 6 Reasons You Shouldn't Become a Real Estate Investor. Obviously, being an investor myself, I thought that was kind of an interesting title and read through it, and there were some good points brought up. So I wanted to record a quick little video to share a little bit of my perspective and experience as to whether or not real estate investing would be a smart move for you. So I'd like to just kind of read, it's a very short article, so I'll kind of read through it and provide my insight into what is shared. Starts off here with the popularity of HGTV and dime a dozen house flipping seminars open to the public nationwide. It seems everyone now wants to become a real estate investor. Whether it's through wholesaling or flipping, your rags to riches dream of home ownership is just around the corner, right? Well, it could be if you had no other full-time job, family, or friends, or life of your own. Here are 6 reasons you should not become the real estate investor your dreams are selling you. Now, I have to smile because those HGTV shows, they're pretty entertaining. They're fun to watch, but they are not realistic. That is very true. There's a lot of added drama in those shows that really doesn't exist. Well, they're quote-unquote reality TV, right? Scripted reality TV. And then there's a lot of issues and things that pop up that are either non-issues or they are the non-issues are blown out of proportion. And then there are a lot of times are major issues that pop up that are just kind of glossed over, okay? And that's because, I used to be a producer, a film producer myself for over a decade. And so you want to create a story that's engaging, a story that really involves your audience and keeps them watching. And so, the producers, they focus on including the content in there that is going to achieve that, not so much the content that is going to be most educational in nature. So a lot of what you see is not exactly true. And the rags to riches dream, if you ask anyone that is a rag to riches story, they will tell you, oh yeah, I was an overnight success. It just took me, a couple decades to get there. Like anything in life, it requires hard work and persistence in order for you to be successful as a real estate investor. And, if you say, well, can you do it if you don't have a full-time job or any other thing? Absolutely. When I got started in real estate investing, not only did I have a full-time job, I was also running a full-time a small business that I'd been running for the past 10 years. So was it tricky? Yeah, it was. Those were some long hours. But I had a full-time job and running another full-time business and was able to launch my new business, a new career as a real estate investor. And thankfully, after a little while, I was able to transition out and just focus on real estate investing. But I know a lot of folks who don't do investing full-time. They just do it on the side, and it works out great for them. So it is a possibility to be able to do that if you want. Continuing on, number 1, you can't find the right property. Seasoned real estate investors have connections with wholesalers, real estate agents, foreclosure specialists, and more. That is true. Relationships are very, very important. This is a team sport. This is not something you want to tackle on your own. It takes years to build those connections. Think you're going to find a deal on your local MLS? Good luck. Most sales on the MLS are marked up at least 6% to cover agent fees, and experienced investors find deals off market, knowing that once they hit the MLS, they're likely not deals at all. In addition to finding the property, do you know how to evaluate if it's a good deal? How is the neighborhood? What's the resale value? What work needs to be done, and how much is that going to cost? All of that factors into analyzing whether a distressed property is worth the purchase price. There's some great points brought up in here. Now, as I mentioned before, relationships are key to success in real estate. Wholesalers, real estate agents, foreclosure, absolutely. This is a team sport and you want to build those connections, and that does take time. But like in any business, you got to start somewhere, right? Now, in the deals that my wife and I have done, we have actually acquired quite a few properties off the MLS because, a lot of people, even in hot markets right now where we live, it is a hot market. There is a lack of availability of properties. And so there's a lot of competition. But you still get people who put distressed properties or properties that simply won't qualify for government, for FHA, VA financing on the MLS. And so the only people that can buy those are cash buyers, are investors. And so we've actually got quite a few flips off the MLS. Granted, it is harder. it is harder. We have different other strategies, acquisition strategies that lead generation strategies that we use because they're a little easier, a little more lucrative. But if we see a deal pop up on the MLS, hey, we'll look at it, we'll grab it because it's just a different lead generation source, but it is definitely a little bit harder. Also, they talk about here as far as evaluating a deal. Once you find the deal, how do you know if it's a good deal? Well, that's part of I would argue, the most important aspect of being a real estate investor, which is understanding analysis. Real estate is just a numbers game. If you don't understand how to do the property analysis, and it's a process, and it's something that you go through, and we've got a whole big spreadsheet that we use. We go through and collect a bunch of different data and then compare it out, and that will tell us whether or not there's a deal there, whether we got enough margin to make a profit. Because that's where you're looking at the neighborhood, the resale value, and part of your due diligence in acquiring a property is determining what work does need to be done and how much is it going to cost. We've got tools for calculating all that. So the analysis is the most important part of what we do once we find that lead. And it's kind of divided up into two parts. We have a quick analysis, and then we have a more in-depth, detailed, long analysis. And that is absolutely crucial. Very, very important step to be able to know whether or not the deal is going to work out. So some good points, but nothing there. Don't see anything there that concerns me too much, as long as you know what it is that you're doing. If you're flying by the seat of your pants, good luck. But if you know what you're doing, and that knowledge obviously comes with experience and comes with with getting educated and learning how to do it correctly, so that you can be successful. Let's jump on to number 2 here. You don't have the cash. Unless you're sitting on a stack of cash, you most likely don't have the funds to truly jump headfirst into real estate flipping. Real estate investors usually have a handful of private lenders and other sources to generate cash for projects. Without it, you could end up in a situation where mid-rehab, you run into a huge issue you didn't budget for, and now you're sitting on a half-completed property with no way of finishing it. This is fun. I have come across quite a few properties where that's exactly what happened, where we walk into the property because we're looking to acquire it, and you can tell that the prior owner was an investor that, just didn't really, maybe know what they were doing, or they ran out of cash and they miscalculated, and you can see that they're stuck, and now they're looking for somebody else to come in and finish the project. Now, granted, you do need, obviously, of course, you need money to be a real estate investor. But what's interesting is if you do it right, it doesn't need to be your money. And so when I actually started as an investor, I didn't have money. I had a negative cash flow each month. My expenses were greater than my income. And so, what is interesting, once again, is the relationships that you build will provide that capital for you. So we have great relationships with several local hard money lenders who give us phenomenal terms, much, much better than what most people are used to. And also we have access to a bunch of private lending, private capital. And once again, that is something that we formed through relationships over time. It takes time, but we actually got involved with a local group of investors, and I would encourage you to as well. If you are looking at doing real estate, or if you are doing real estate, connect with other folks in your local area that are doing what you're doing as an investor, so that you can start to build those relationships, because that is what will open the doors for you to access the capital that you need. In all the deals that we've done, we've never used our own money. We haven't needed to. Why? Because we have access to relationships, and through those relationships, private capital, where we can create win-win situations. Now, this is something that, even from the beginning, you just got to hit the pavement and go, and we were able to get that and get things going. Another interesting thing is there are different strategies where we can pick up properties without needing capital. In fact, the very first flip that we did, the owner gave us the house because we helped them solve a problem. And so, there are different ways. It's not always that, you have to come in with cash or hard money or whatever to acquire a property. There are different strategies that you can do to be able to pick things up. You just have to learn what they are and then know how to correctly execute them. And as far as being mid project and huge issues you didn't budget for pop up, what I say is, if you think that everything is going to work perfectly on the project, you are kidding yourself. It never, ever, ever works perfectly. Every project has surprises, and that's something that we plan and prepare for. So when we do our budgeting, when we're doing our analysis beforehand, we have all of our anticipated expenses, but we always include a whoops, or an oops, a cushion, as it were, to provide a little bit of extra coverage when those things pop up, because there are going to be surprises, things that we don't know about, and that's a great way to protect yourselves, because that always happens. And by doing the numbers in that manner and giving yourself that hedge against those unexpected expenses that you're going to have, then when they happen, it doesn't really affect your project that much, and you're able to still go through, finish, be successful, and make a nice profit. Number 3, you don't have a go-to list of contractors. No, you can't simply Google and go to the top construction company for all your work. You will end up way over budget. And no, you can't call your uncle who may or may not know a little about hanging drywall. It takes real estate investors years to build lists of painters, plumbers, electricians, HVAC techs, roofers, and others. They're generally professionals who work mainly with real estate investors. Their prices are much lower than your top search hit on Google. Without this list, you're most certainly going to overpay. And that is very true. You have to work with, once again, you have to build relationships with people who are part of that win-win situation. When you're just a consumer and you're saying, hey, I need a painter, I need somebody to paint my living room, that's a one-off job for them. And so they are going to charge more. They're going to charge retail. But when you're talking about a relationship that you're building with a painter whose house after house after house, you're using them to continually paint every property you do, well, that gives you more power in the negotiation and more leverage to be able to say, look, I can't pay retail. I am a professional just like you, but my business is going to be a volume business. And so by me working with you, you're going to be, if you are willing to give me contractor pricing, then we're going to be able to work together, and you're going to make a bunch more money with me than you would with a standard customer, because it's a volume business. The other thing is we're a lot easier to work with than a traditional homeowner, because we're not going to live in the house. I don't want to say we don't care, but we're not emotional. We do care. We're just not emotionally invested in what it is that they're doing, like a traditional customer is. And so, from the contractor standpoint, they love working with us because it's easy. They can come on all hours of the night. They can, we just have a key box there. They come in, they do their work, they're done, they get paid right away. It's very easy, and it's something that makes it, once again, creates a win-win situation for us and for them. And building those relationships is something that takes time, but we have been able to acquire a lot of our relationships thanks to the other investors that we work with and we hang around with, asking them, hey, who are you working with as far as a painter, or where are you getting your where are you buying your doors? Where are you buying your cabinets? All that kind of stuff really is helpful, and it takes time. At the very beginning, we spent a little more time hitting the pavement and finding and researching and finding where we wanted to source our materials and source our contractor and professionals. But after a few deals, you get locked in, and then you're good to go. Depending on how your market is. If it's a very busy market, you are going to want to have multiples of the different professionals, because your guy might not be available in the moment that you need him, and so you want to have backups. But building that list of contractors does require some work, and it is something that can change over time because people can move or people can retire, and so you want to have different options. But it's not an unattainable task. It is something that you can do, and it's part of the adventure of being a real estate investor is building that list of contractors. Number 4, rehabbing for profit and for personal taste are two different things. Yes, they are. I once worked with a person who was rehabbing a home for resale. They were buying quartz countertops, engineered hardwood flooring, and other upscale finishes for a home that, compared to comps in the neighborhood, was going to retail around $130,000. The issue was they hadn't done their research. They were making this house the absolute best house on the block based on their personal taste, but the upgrades weren't going to translate into real profit. You have to know your market. What do your comps have in the kitchen? Laminate, quartz, or granite? You must do your research or it could be a costly mistake. Full-time real estate investors always know the current trends and how to budget correctly for their rehab. This is absolutely true, and this is a rookie mistake or a mistake that I see uneducated investors make a lot. Why? Because the house isn't for you. It doesn't matter if you like, whatever design aesthetic or color or layout. You do what the majority wants, what is hot, what is trendy, what is popular in that moment, because that's what's going to sell. We design and we finish for the buyer, not for ourselves. And so some people struggle with that, but it's just a simple principle, and that's how you're doing it. Now, if you're going to keep the house and live in it later, great. Fix it for your own taste. But you do need to focus on what is hot. And how can you know that? Well, there are lots of ways. Google, Pinterest. You can go on, property, a parade of homes, and walk through the parade of homes and see what's going on right now in your local area, what is popular. But more than anything, you want to look and see what type of neighborhood it is that you're rehabbing in. I like to use the comparison of retail stores. So you've got your Walmart, right? Walmart type store. You've got your Target, which is a little bit nicer, a little bit more upscale, a little bit more expensive. Then you've got your Nordstrom. Nordstrom is a lot more expensive, but a lot nicer. And so when you look at different property types, looking at different neighborhoods, one of the considerations is, like mentioned in here, is what do the comps have in the kitchen? Are they doing laminate, quartz, granite countertops? Because you don't want to over finish a house, but you also don't want to under finish it. If you're in a Nordstrom neighborhood where homes are selling for exorbitant prices, and every single buyer in that type of neighborhood is expecting certain finishes, they're expecting quartz and marble countertops, and you put in laminate, that house is never going to sell. Likewise, if you're in a Walmart neighborhood where laminate's a standard and everyone's happy with it, and you put in granite, high-end granite, you're never going to recoup that cost. And so determining, what is this? Once again, part of the analysis, saying, is this a Walmart neighborhood, a Target neighborhood, or a Nordstrom neighborhood, is going to help you determine whether or not the finishes that you're looking at are appropriate finishes for that property. Now, you can go with nicer finishes if they don't cost more, because that'll just increase the desirability of the property. And people will say, potential buyers, when they come and look at it, they'll say, wow, this place is so much nicer than all the other places we've looked at within our price range. That's a good thing. That'll help you sell it a lot faster. And that's something we always try to do when it makes sense financially. But you just have to remember that the way that the property is finished must align with the neighborhood that it's in. Otherwise, you're gonna price it too high. You're not going to be able to sell it. You're going to be stuck with it. And because if you got a neighborhood where all the houses are $250,000 and you overfinished a house so that it's $350,000, somebody who's looking for a $350,000 house is not going to buy it in a $250,000 neighborhood. It just doesn't align. It doesn't fit. They're going to want to live in a $350,000 neighborhood. So some good points there. Very important, especially for rookie investors. Rehabbing for profit and personal taste are very, very different. Number 5, becoming a landlord is a full-time job that few want. If your goal is to rehab the property and keep it as a rental, are you going to manage the property yourself? If so, do you know the landlord-tenant laws in your state? Do you have lease documents ready? Have you secured a permit to rent the property if required? What about fair housing laws? If you don't know them, one honest mistake in your screening process for tenants and advertising could cost you thousands in legal fees. This is why most real estate investors who keep properties for rentals have a professional property management company handle the red tape of being a landlord. I would say I agree 100%. Okay? I personally do not want to be a landlord. I'm not. Well, I do own rental properties. Absolutely. But I don't personally, I've got a great portfolio. I personally do not landlord or manage those properties. I have an amazing property manager, and he and his team, they manage all our properties. Once again, we've got our analysis we do when we're looking at a fix and flip. We're doing our numbers. That's very, very important. Likewise, when you're doing a rental, you have a rental property analysis, which is actually even more in-depth and more complicated than the analysis you do as a flipper. But that's part of the cost. The overhead is including a management fee. That's part of running our numbers. And so when we run our numbers, if we're unable to include, or if the numbers don't work when including a management fee, we don't do the deal, because I'm not in the business of dealing with tenant issues. That's my manager's job. And so, I don't want to learn the landlord-tenant laws. There are professional tenants that take advantage of landlords. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with drawing up the airtight lease agreement. My manager does that. He pays his attorneys to ensure that the lease agreement, that the lease documents are enforceable and in adherence with the local laws. The permit to rent the property. Yes, I do have the business licenses necessary to have rentals. Not a big deal. You just renew it once a year when you with the local city or the local requirements. That's how it works here. Not a big deal. Fair housing laws, all that stuff. I don't have to worry about the anti-discrimination laws. I don't have to worry about any of that, because why? My manager handles everything. Background checks, credit checks, criminal checks, anti-discrimination, all that stuff. They know exactly how to do it, and they ensure that we're protected as the owners and as the investors, and they make sure that our tenants are taken good care of, because we want to make sure that if they're doing their part and taking good care of the property and paying on time, we give them a discount, and we work with them if they get in a bind, and there's different things that we do to we jump on those anytime they submit a maintenance request. There's an electronic system that our manager has set up so that instantly we can receive notification of the request and approve it. And most of all the small things, they just take care of immediately, and it's really great. So we maintain a great relationship with our tenants, but we don't have to worry about any of the headache. And a big thing on there that's not even brought up in this article is evictions. Because guess what? If you are a landlord, if you own rental properties, it's not a question of if you will ever have to evict someone. You will. It's a matter of when. You will have to evict someone, and when you get to that point, and I know from experience, I've had to evict people. A lot of times when we purchase a property, the current tenants that are in there, they'll stop performing. And because, there's different reasons. And so we need to evict them so we can kind of, clean up the building and get it ready for more qualified tenants that our manager places in there. And so that eviction process can be a little daunting if you don't know what you're doing. And once again, we have a team, we have attorneys who are very, very skilled at doing that, at executing that, getting those tenants out so that we can make the necessary repairs, get the property cleaned up, and get it re-rented with a more qualified tenant. But that is something that if you are trying to do it yourself, if you do not adhere to all of the timelines, the laws, the disclosures, and everything correctly as outlined, if you have a professional tenant, they can actually dispute that eviction, and especially in some states, can stay for months or years in the property squatting, and you as the landlord are pretty much SOL. You're out of luck. And so that is something that you really do not want to mess with. Having a manager will help you with that, and having a great attorney to be able to handle those types of situations, evictions, and all that is it's part of the cost of doing business. And that's something that we even include in the analysis. We calculate the cost of doing evictions when we pick up a property and include a little bit in the budget for that, because we know it's going to happen at some point. And that's why running that analysis and doing it correctly is so important, to ensure that you're actually making money on your investment instead of just making stress and losing money. Nobody wants that. Number 6, there are expenses you never thought of that will drain you dry if you don't budget for them. Have you considered the taxes on the property? What about insurance, closing costs, permits from the city for the work? real estate agent commission as well as cooperating agent's commission, closing costs for the buyer. What about those pesky repairs the buyer's going to ask for? No home is perfect, and it all adds up and eats away at your already tight budget. Once again, I agree 100% with this one. Okay, these are really valid points. So thank you to whoever wrote this article. These are really good things for new investors to consider. These expenses are super important. Like I said, there's going to be surprises that pop up. So you have to include those. You have to include a hedge in your numbers. And the taxes, that's part of the spreadsheet that we use when we calculate both short-term and long-term holds. Absolutely, we include taxes, property taxes. We include our insurance, our hazard insurance, or our renter's insurance. Closing cost on the buy side and on the sell side, we include that. Permits is one of our rehab costs. The commissions, well, when we buy, it's we don't pay the commission on the buying side, but when we're selling, absolutely. We'll include a full listing agent and a buyer's agent commission. Now, we might not even use an agent depending on how we sell it, but we still include that just to be conservative in our numbers when we're doing our analysis. The closing costs for the buyer, absolutely. We always assume that our buyer is going to ask for closing costs in addition to things like, of course, title insurance and a home warranty. And so all of those things we include by default in our numbers. When we run our numbers, we really go conservative because it's a lot better to calculate, hey, I'm going to turn around this property, turn it around fast and get a $40,000 net profit. And then it turns out you made $45,000 instead because your numbers were so conservative, you're able to do it quicker or you had less expenses. That's a lot better than, hey, we're going to make $40,000 profit and turns out we only made 10. Okay, you don't want that to happen. And so running your numbers very conservatively is super important, and that's just how we do it. And including all these costs, always assuming that we will have those costs, allows us to be more successful in the numbers that we're doing. And those extra repairs, like I said before, the hedge, yeah, there's going to be stuff. There's going to be things the buyer asks for after they do their inspection and repairs. Even if you fully rehab the house, there's always going to be some little thing that they want. And so, just it all goes back to how you're doing your analysis, how you're running your numbers, and ensuring that you have everything covered and that your numbers are run very conservatively. Have all that nailed down? There's still more to consider. In rehab, time is money. The longer this project takes, the more money it requires. So if you were considering a flip as a weekend project to fill your time, it's going to become a bigger beast than you ever imagined. And that is very true. That I kind of blame that on those TV shows where people say, "Oh, well, in one episode of the show, it's like a half hour long. They burn through, they pound through a full transaction." And people understand that it's edited for time, but they think it's a lot easier than it is. It's not. Real estate investing, like anything, requires work, requires dedication and discipline, and requires you to be educated so you know what you're doing. But time is money, especially when you're using hard money or private funds because you're paying for those funds. That's what we do. We leverage the money needed. But when you have a system, that's really, really key. You look at any successful business, any scalable business, it's systematized. So we systematize what we do so that when the surprises come up, when whatever happens, we're able to continue on and stick to schedule as much as possible and finish the deal. When we're calculating how long it's going to take us on an average flip, we calculate 6 months. 6 months. It's not something we're going to do over a weekend. And typically we'll get it done in less time than that. But when we're calculating our holding costs, our money costs, and looking at, okay, what time are we going to be putting this on the market? When are we going to be, doing all of the different steps of the transaction? We're doing a 6-month timeline. And sometimes it's longer. Sometimes it's 12 months, 18 months, depending on what type of deal it is for a flip. And so, yeah, once again, you have to have accurate expectations of the timeline you're dealing with. But what's interesting is I personally am not the one that's there every day. I'm not there every day. I'm not swinging a hammer. We are leveraging other people. We have a team. We're buying their time using other people's money to execute a transaction where we take the majority of the profit. And that's what we do as an investor because we have the relationships, because we have the knowledge, we're able to accomplish that. That's what makes real estate investing so much fun. If you're still interested in becoming a real estate investor, alternatives exist for busy professionals who want to get into real estate as an investment. Clients of my firm opt for turnkey investing, which allows you to invest in real estate, keep your current job, and reap the benefits of owning income-producing real estate. Essentially, a real estate company buys a property, manages and funds the rehab, rents the property, secures the property management, and sells investors a cash-flowing rental property. This is a beginner-friendly, passive method that allows you to invest in real estate without the huge risks inexperience may cost, and can be done in multiple markets if you choose. The dream of real estate investing may not be what you see on your favorite cable TV show, but getting some skin in the game is a possibility once you weigh every factor and opportunity. So that last paragraph sounds like the author here perhaps has a company that they have, or maybe it's a REIT, real estate investment trust, that allows people to invest by putting in a little bit of money in a passive manner. But I would encourage anybody, if you are currently in investing, or if you're considering getting into investing, it really boils down to the kind of the key things that I've discussed in this recording, which is you got to get educated. You need to learn how to do it correctly, because if you don't, you will get burned. And all of these great points that were brought up in this article will burn you, because if you don't know what you're doing, it can be a tricky game. The investing game can be tricky, and you really need to be educated so that you know what you're doing. Second off, you need to surround yourself with other people who are doing it. You've got to build those relationships. They are key. You've got to build your team, because this is a team sport. And if you want to be the one that's making the profit, you could plug in, you can buy shares in a REIT, or you could do something like that. Not necessarily the most lucrative way. For some people, that's what they want to do as a passive investor. If you're looking more as along the lines of wanting to be a passive investor, I would say you might want to look into being a private money lender instead, because that'll actually pay you a lot more than typically than just being a purchasing into a REIT. But there are different options, different ways that you can invest as a passive investor if you don't want to learn it all and be more involved. But real estate investing is a phenomenal way to make money, whether it's a full-time occupation or part-time on the side. And this article brought up some interesting points for consideration. So once again, my name is Ryan Black, real estate investor. Thanks for taking time to share with me on this video. I hope you found it beneficial, and I hope you've learned a thing or two. Hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.